Hi, I'm Mike Coyle, and you're watching Insidexploration. Today I'm here with Quentin Yari, who is the CEO of Macdonald Mines, listed on the TSX venture under BMK. Quentin, thanks for having me out to the property again this year.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
So
awesome.
Today we're on the Jovan Showing,
Yes,
which is not exactly Scadding Central, but you've recently done an IP survey here, and you wanted to talk a little bit about what you're finding. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing here.
Yeah, the showing that we're sitting on right here has always been interesting to us. One of the major problems was, well, it's small. Yeah. I mean, what we're sitting on is effectively what you see. The grades that come out of this are actually quite spectacular. You know, we have high-grade gold, high-grade cobalt, high-grade copper, and some nickel, up to 0.3% nickel as well. And the cobalt gets up to close to 7% with, 14 grams per ton gold, those types of values. So of great interest to us. This year, part of our program before we started drilling again was to conduct IP surveys over a number of areas on our property. And we picked some high-grade targets that we wanted to follow up on, and this was one of them. So what we did was we did a smaller IP survey over sort of the layout of the land here. We got the preliminary results back, and it showed that the high sulfide content of this actually has some great extent to it. So then we expanded the survey, and we're seeing that the IP results indicate that the sulfides here extend over, hundreds of meters rather than just what we see here. So for us, that's quite exciting. It looks similar responses to what we see at Scadding.
So what's the plan here? Do you plan on drilling here this year then?
Our plan is to drill in this area and definitely on this target, and the IPs led us here. Yep.
Cool. Can we expect another IP video about the Jovan Showing?
I'm sure I'll get another IP survey. Once we get all the results back and finalized, yes. I think we can draw some comparisons to what we see at Scadding, which is over 14 kilometers from here.
So on Scadding, kind of fill us in on what you're seeing in the IP surveys and how much of a footprint have you actually established now with those IPs?
Yeah, I mean, the IP surveys assisted us in spotting our drill holes for certain. One of the things that we really like and what we've established there is the Villeneuve structure. And you've seen that in some of our press releases. We've now tracked that Villeneuve structure over 600 meters in strike length. And we proved that there's mineralization along that whole trend. Yep. So obviously it's becoming a much larger project than the three smaller pits that we've taken pictures of in the past, and we're following up on that. We'll be obviously drilling on that as well, and we expanded the footprint of the IP survey over the Scadding, so we expect we'll be drilling to the north and south as well along strike.
So you did a metals index when you did the IP video.
Yep.
So far in your drilling visually, is it lining up with what you kind of observed through the IP surveys? Definitely
it's mapping the structures properly, and we're finding that the gold mineralization is controlled by a number of factors. There's the geochemistry behind it, which is part of the model that we see here, but also the structures are controlling the deposition of the gold that we're observing. So the IP is crucial in us being able to observe the structures before we drill.
So what would you say your interpretation is this year versus last year? Last year you're very focused on the north-south structures and the chlorite, but this year you've kind of come out and said you're noticing some hinge and fold features. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, one of the things that the IP showed us is that it's a complex folded system. And that was correlated then by what we observed on surface. So we've noticed that it's tightly folded and it has a dip that was previously not recognized. But now we've gone back, we've reviewed our data from our boreholes. It's not changing the target as far as we're looking for the chlorite-rich zones, because that's what the gold's in. But we have a much better understanding now of why we're in gold and sometimes why we're out of gold, because these folds are quite tight. So you can go into one limb, through a limb, and then back into another limb.
So it's really, you got to do a lot of drilling to highlight the structures themselves, or you pretty much know where they're running?
No, I think now we have a much better handle. And like I say, the IP is mapping the structures quite well because the structures are primarily associated with sulfide and chlorite versus the background rocks, which are devoid of sulfides.
So what's your target for this year? How many holes do you really plan on drilling? I know you started in August. How many are you at now, and what do you plan on getting to?
Yeah, we've drilled 62 holes to date, just over 4,000 meters. The plan is to drill another around 14,000 meters. this season between now and say, 12 to 14 months from now. We'll have 2 drills on site. One, we're going to focus on some of these high priority targets that we see outside of the Scadding, but definitely want to expand on that, 600 meter strike length at Scadding as well.
So most of your holes have been fairly shallow, and by the sounds of it, 62 holes, they're all pretty shallow. Do you have any plans on going deeper?
We do now, and again, there was reasons for that, the preponderance of the information, and probably because our lack of understanding of the geometry that was going on, but now we feel we have a good handle on that, and we will explore to greater depths for sure.
So last year you had filed a 43-101, or had an intention of filing a 43-101 resource. Do you think by the end of this drilling campaign you'll have enough data to put that together?
Obviously, we'd like to say yes to that. I'm not going to promise that. It depends what the results will say. Again, our intention here would be, if we're going to file a resource statement, we want it to be of significant size. I mean, we've mentioned before, I think in these interviews, everybody believes there's gold and good mineralization here in this camp, and we'll call it a camp because, again, we're sitting 14 kilometers away from the Scadding on another showing. It's been the idea is, how big is this thing, and how many ounces can be, brought out of this. And I think for us, what's a number before we do a resource? I don't know, it'd have to be well north of, I think, 500,000 ounces. Because I think that makes it significant in this area where we are so close to Sudbury.
So you're also working on Powerline property as well, right? So talk to me about a little bit of the work you've done there this year.
Again, at Powerline, we covered the areas of interest with an IP survey. I haven't seen the exact results from that yet, or preliminary results or anything. However, we see the same geochemical signatures and the same structural modeling that we've seen, that we now believe we understand, so it will be a target for drilling as well.
So you just did a big raise. You got enough money to probably see you through to the end of the year. You don't foresee going to the market for more money anytime soon?
No, we did a raise. We raised over $4 million. We went for 2, got over 4, and I think we've seen the market responding to successful projects, and people that are exploring properly in the industry are getting funding. And
do you think that bulk sampling is going to be an option coming out of this drilling campaign once you've kind of delineated everything and figured out what you have?
I don't think so, not yet, no. I don't think a bulk sample's in the image, or in our picture immediately. Again, this is an exploration phase project, and there's another, again, we know we have gold here, we just want to prove out the size. I mean, there's lots of information here on the processing of the rock that came out of here. There were 2 operating mines. We know what the metallurgy is. There's been theses wrote on that. So a bulk sample would not be of great advantage to us, because we know what our recoveries are going to be already. And we sort of know what the historic head grades were. They were around 9 grams per ton gold with up to 1% copper. So, we really know what we're dealing with that way.
So no need to get into the bulk sampling right away?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll try to do this again soon. Maybe the next interview might be a remote interview, because I don't think we'll be back here in the middle of winter.
No, but, it'll be cold.
Yes, it does get cold up here, but good luck on your drilling campaign, and thanks for having us out.
Thank you. Have a good one.